for 2 years. And so he got home and we had the whole family together. And so we went down to the Grand Canyon, which is one of our very favorite places. But like many other places, it is hotter than usual. And my wife and 2 daughters just melt in the heat. They're like snowmen. And so we started our hiking at night. And you can't see very well, but there's all kinds of stars up here. And we have our red headlamps on so it doesn't mess with our night vision. And we started doing this 20-mile hike at about 2 or 3 in the morning. And this was just a fun picture that I took as we were descending down the canyon. You can see them. So we like to do those kinds of things together. It's one of the ways that we get to know each other and spend time together. We also, since the kids moved out of the house, one of the big things for us is trapping the children and making them talk to us. And so when we fly out to where they live, they're all at university now, we can load them all into a car. And then we have to drive to the Grand Canyon, which is like 10 hours from there. And so for 10 hours, we get to tell stories and sing songs. And it's wonderful to have everybody in that space again. For my research, if you're interested, we'll be talking more about this stuff tomorrow. I do design for human variability. So for faculty, one of the ways that you get promoted and tenured, that's one of our big objectives, right, is to become the world's expert at something. And there are a couple of ways to do that. One of them, as you work on your PhD, you take kind of the world and you slice it down so narrowly that you can take a step further than anybody who's stepped before and know things that nobody else knows. And then you're the world's expert in that thing. That is not where my talents lie. I am much better at taking a lot of different kinds of things and putting them together. And so, for example, my undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering and a second one in industrial engineering. My PhD is in biomedical engineering. And so I was trying to figure out how I could be the world's expert at something with this weird background. And the easy answer to that is to make that thing up. And so at the time, this was the early 2000s, DFX. So design for X, whether it's maintainability, recyclability, sustainability, any of these kinds of things that was becoming popular. And I wanted to take the work that I'd done as a mechanical engineer with designing products largely and optimization, those kinds of things, robust design. The work I'd done as an industrial engineer with and then combine it with my work I did as a biomedical engineer, where we were looking at anatomy and physiology and all these kinds of things. So we combined all that stuff up and made design for human variability. So I'm the world's expert in it because I invented that name. And that's the easy way. So, I do a lot of work with how you design things that are robust to variability in people. So, for example, when I walked into this room, I recognized these chairs. I was asked to evaluate these chairs. In fact, the one time I got to fly on a private airplane. The company that makes these chairs that you're all sitting in is Steelcase, and they sent their private airplane out to where I lived, and I got to ride their private plane back to their place in Michigan and evaluate these chairs, and then they flew me back home. I've never felt cooler in my entire life. It never happened again. It was like that one time. But that's the way to fly. There's a reason rich people fly that way, because and security is easy peasy, all that stuff. You show up, you get on, they fly.
No wheelie chairs on the plane, right?
No wheelie chairs on the plane. But yeah, so there's actually a lot of interesting stories about this chair. We could talk about those. I want to tell you a little bit about my experience with project-based learning. It was kind of terrifying as I started to think about this. I've been involved with more than 2,000 client-sponsored projects. And I've worked with more than 10,000 students on client-based projects, on project-based learning stuff. I've done that at 4 different universities, 3 in the US, and then at the National University of Singapore in Singapore. And I've been a student working on these kind of projects, but I've also been a coach and an instructor. I've been the guy in charge of going out and finding projects. I've been the sponsor It turns out that's a completely different skill set. If you have a client, being a good client, I thought for sure I was going to be an amazing client, and I was terrible at it. So that's a different skill set. So I have some experience with these kinds of things. Just to motivate a little bit, I have the ideas for why I'm interested in project-based learning. But many of you are here. We've got a bunch of people online. One of the things I hope to do through the next hour and 10 minutes or whatever that we're together is get your perspective on things, right? So I have a very, I come from a middle-class family. I'm tall, I'm white. In the US, we would say that I bring a certain amount of privilege to this experience, right? And I see things in the way that I historically see things. I would be very interested in hearing how people in a very different place, with a very different set of circumstances, what they view as important reasons for doing things. Because then I can inform my practice and get better at what I do. So why do you guys feel like project-based learning is important? How is that meaningful to you? What are your thoughts?
I think project-based learning is important because it gives you a hands-on and experience, more practically.
Okay, nice. I love it. So this is like, oh, there we go. I found it. So it gives you practical experience. I love that, and
Yeah.
I think one thing that's really, I think in the next 10 years that that universities are going to go one of two ways. And I think one way is they're going to get rid of project-based learning and say that hands-on learning, all these working with tangible things, we don't have the resources for it, we don't have the space for it, or anything else. The other way, I think, is universities are going to realize that there is almost no market for students who don't know anything but just what they learned in regular school. In the US, this has become very apparent very quickly. Companies need people who already know how to do things. They need the employees that have been at the company for a decade. They don't need the ones that have been there for 50 years or 40 years, and they don't need the ones that are just starting. AI can do all that. What they need are the ones in the middle. And I think universities need to learn how to start making students that are already kind of in the middle, that have a lot of experience. In the US, when a student shows up at the university, what they know how to do is play video games. They just don't have the experience that we did growing up, taking things apart and putting things back together, or working on a farm, or having all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
There's a hand.
Sharif, online.
I don't have. You can just read it out. Shout it out.
So you can unmute them. Yeah.
Go ahead, mute it already. Go ahead, Sharif.
I think the best topic is learning by doing. Learning by doing is the shortest way to give all what you want to transfer to students through a real world problem, and this is where we apply the project-based learning.
Perfect. I love that phrase, and in fact, we'll use that here in a little bit. I absolutely agree. Good. Yeah.
I was going to say, it significantly moves one from absolute memorizations, and one is soaked into a trial and error form of application, which I think, even if it's simulated, it gives one capacity to still apply it in the workforce, in the real workforce. So that is what I'd like to.
Yeah, so we work from, it helps us to move from memorization to trial and error. Along with learn by doing, one of the things that we'll talk about is learning how to fail successfully, right? And that's where that trial and error is. And so I work, so I'm in engineering. How many of you are in engineering? You, okay, what are our other disciplines, just out of curiosity?
Education.
Education.
Like linguistics.
Linguistics, okay, so a bunch of different spaces.
Sustainability, right? Sustainability.
Engineering.
Okay, Yeah, so for us in engineering, failure is really important because you want the airplane to fail when you're like building it and not when you're using it. You want the bridge to fail when you're designing it, not when you're using it, right? So learning how to fail appropriately is really important, an important aspect of this process. Another big reason for project-based learning. Yeah.
Besides like the student engage more in
Yeah.
things and they have more like fun and as well they learn more.
Yes. My son, my oldest son, who's down in Alexandria right now, boy, he hates school. And we've tried so hard to make him think school is fun. Like I never said I was going to work. I said I was going to play. And then they thought all I did was play all day long. But he really needs an engagement like this. He needs to be able to work on things, and he learns really well that way. He does not learn the other way out.
I think project-based learning helps students prepare for real-life projects later on in their career.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely agree. There's a lot of skills that you learn through project-based learning that you can't really pick up elsewhere, and I think that we're increasingly going to need. Yeah.
I'm just gonna read out what Rasha wrote in the comments. She says hands-on and gives students authentic experiences.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I love it. So for me, an easy way to summarize this is outcomes. Like everything is better. And there's all kinds of data, people have done all kinds of research on this. Everything is better. The students get better grades, they get better jobs, they're happier with their experience, retention. At our university, we're very concerned about retention. The students that sign up, being able to keep them and get them graduated with a degree, retention is better when they are engaged with these kinds of things. They make friends and they have better experiences, they become better people. Every possible outcome is improved when you do these kinds of things. And yet we still often find faculty and teachers that just resist this kind of learning, mostly because they're uncomfortable with how to do it. So in addition to having experience with project-based learning, I've been the director of a place at Penn State we call the Learning Factory for the last 10 years. I'm currently on leave, which is part of why I get to come and have fun with you guys. And the Learning Factory started 30 years ago. And it was just a maker space that involves students from two disciplines, mechanical engineering and industrial engineering. It has since grown. This is a building that we just opened up a couple of years ago. We figured it's about 10,000, 12,000 square meters. It has 40,000 square feet. So what would that be? Like 3,500 square feet or 4,000 square feet of maker space in it. And we coordinate in the Learning Factory projects for our first year students with what we call the Cornerstone Maker Experience. And then also our fourth year students for their capstone experience. So the capstone program is where students come in and we put them in multidisciplinary teams. So the teams have 5 or 6 students on it. And more than 95% of the projects have students from at least 2 different disciplines on it. More than 65% of the projects have students from at least 3 disciplines on it. And they work together to solve a client-sponsored project. And about 70% of these projects come from industry. The other 30% come from lots of different other places. But our industry could be all the way from when we find a customer from industry, it's wonderful for sure. Okay, yeah, we're actually going to talk about that. So that's a great question in a minute. What to do when you can't find an industry to work with. Many of our sponsors are entrepreneurs. I don't know what the entrepreneurial climate is in Egypt, but my understanding is that across Africa, it's actually very vibrant. And a lot of our sponsors come in and they have a great idea, but they don't have the capacity to develop it. They don't have the engineering background to design something and kind of test it and get it to that next phase where maybe they could patent it or they could turn it into a company. And so we have a number of our projects are sponsored by entrepreneurs like that. This is a picture of at the end of the semester, we have a big, we call it the showcase. And so these are all the project teams. So there's more than 1,000 students in this picture that are all there showing off the cool projects that they worked on. So just to give you a little bit of background, several years ago, I took data from 2,000 of these projects. And at the end of the semester, we surveyed all the students, we surveyed all the faculty, we surveyed all the sponsors about how the project went, what they liked about it, what they didn't like, would they recommend us to a friend, these kinds of things. And the top predictors of success. Number one is the instructor. So more did the student get to work on it, all the sponsors are convinced that the most important thing is that they get students that want to work on their project. They say, I really want a motivated student that's really excited about my project. But one of the questions we ask the students is, how excited were you to work on this project at the beginning of the semester? And how excited are you to work on the project at the end of the semester? And there's almost no correlation between those two. The reason is students don't actually know anything. And so I've got way too many stories for how much time we have, but really fast. Because the illusion of students picking projects is important, we go through a process where students are allowed to submit their project preferences. So they look at the menu of 150 projects, then they say, these are the 10 that I'm interested in working on. And I'm sitting there looking at this little dashboard that I've got of all the projects, and I can see, oh, wow, this project that's sponsored by Coca-Cola has like 400 students that want to work on it. And this other project over here has nobody that's picked it. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the distribution of choices. And one of the very coolest projects had 0 students that have chosen it. It was a really cool project. They were going to do remote monitoring of ice sheets in the Antarctic. And it's an amazing project with drones and all kinds of cool sensors. And it was a really, really, really cool project. Not a single student picked it. Why? Because the sponsor who submitted the project just wrote a really boring project description. So how many of you have seen The Incredibles?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So The Incredibles is a movie, an animated movie about superheroes. There's a superhero in there named Frozone. And all the students have heard of Frozone. They all watched Incredibles a million times. I changed the project name to Frozone, ice sheet monitoring, blah, 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 right? And immediately students started shining up for it, right? So then the students don't really have an experience base to draw on. And so the idea that they will know whether a project is good or not isn't really helpful. What really matters is who the instructor is. If they have an instructor that can create a good climate in the classroom, that understands how to motivate the teams, and can help them engage with the project, they can take a student who is indifferent towards the project and help them to be really passionate. Conversely, we have students that are really excited about their projects and they get a bad instructor and they don't ever want to come to class and they have a miserable experience, right? So the number one predictor of success is the instructor. And one of the biggest ways that our sponsors or our instructors run into trouble is by getting between the students and the client, in this case, industry. So they try to be the liaison and we try to pull them out and put them on the side and have the engagement be between the sponsors and the client, or sorry, the sponsors and the instructor. So that's the number one predictor. Number two predictor, can you guess what it is? I'm only going to give you 2 of them.
Students.
It is not the students. That's a good guess, though.
Sponsor, the environment, or the institution.
It's not the institution. That's a good guess. I thought you had it because you were doing this.
I was trying to, the context.
So this is exactly what it is. It's iteration. The number of times they go through a project. So I ran a study. I got a group of students, and I did this with lots of groups of students, but I would get groups of students, and I gave them the project on a Friday, and then I had it due not the following Monday, but a week Monday. So they had like 9 days to work on the project. Okay? And then I did a group of students working on the project for an entire semester. And then I did groups of students where they started on Monday and would finish on Wednesday. And the outcomes across all of them were almost exactly the same. So time is not a factor in the outcomes for the students. And the reason is because students, unless they are coached to do otherwise, will only go through the process once. Right? And so when's the next thing due? Right, and they work, and then the next thing is due. And then what's the thing after that? And if we teach them a linear process and walk through this just one thing at a time, then they go through the process once, and at the very end, the night before it's due, whether that's on Tuesday night or Sunday night, or the night before it's due on a semester-long thing, they put a whole bunch of work in on it, and it's done. But iteration, going through the process over and over again, and this is where having the right instructor matters, because if the right instructor is coaching them to go through that process again and again, and let's iterate, and let's make prototypes, and let's learn from those prototypes, and then try another version, and let's do it again and again. If we go through that multiple times, it gets better and better and better. And you know how many times your students have finished the project and you say, is there anything you would change? Yes, if I had another day or another week, I would change all these things, right? So they know what they need to do to make things better. They just, the timeline that we give them often isn't conducive to that. What does affect things when you compress the timeline like that is availability of materials. And we run into this in Singapore. So in the US, it's very easy to get a lot of materials. So I've seen the Amazon.Egypt packages around. And if you can get things very quickly to the students, that works really well. We've got a bunch of stores, they can just go buy stuff, and it's very fast. In Singapore, it's very hard to get the materials that they need. And so we run them through things, and we actually have to plan in advance. We have to, as faculty, we have to stock up on materials so that we have anything that they might need, because otherwise the course that I teach is only 2.5 weeks long. We wouldn't get anything in time for them to work. Materials, so for prototyping, we're engineers, and so this is stuff they want to make stuff out of. So Arduinos, if you're into electronics or mechatronics, batteries, wood, gears, bearings, any of this kind of stuff. In the US, very easy to get. We can get any of that stuff the next day. I could place an order at 5 in the afternoon, 5 in the evening, and I could have it at 8 in the morning. So that's not a problem. But in Singapore, it's impossible. So those are our two biggest predictors of success. Any questions or thoughts about any of that? And then before we get into the meat of some stuff.
I wanted to find out. So in situations where you can have the materials, isn't it? It would be also good to have other materials to still push through the same process of iteration, to still push through.
For sure.
Then it means we make plans for alternative angles.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You need way more materials than you think you're going to need for a couple of reasons. First of all, because we don't know what direction the students are going to go with the solution. But also at different points in the process, we're going to need different things. So I love this picture here because it shows the evolution of a design. These right here are prototypes, and there's like 30 of them that were made out of cardboard and paper. In fact, there's a couple of prototypes in here that you can't tell, but they're made out of rice cakes. So they're very crude, very rudimentary prototypes. These would be typical design thinking kinds of prototypes, right? And then they made a full-scale prototype, still out of cardboard. Now this is nicer paperboard that it's made out of, and ultimately the final thing was made out of aluminum. So the students, as they went through this process, every time they prototyped something, they learned. And they had opportunities for people to evaluate stuff, and they gain a lot from that experience. So you need a bunch of materials, not just because you're not sure what they're going to make, but because they need different kinds of materials at different points in the process. Good. Other questions or comments? Yeah.
Does it ever happen that the students might not project building on previous projects?
Yeah. So has it ever happened that students build on continue a previous project?
Yeah.
Yeah. So our projects last for 15 weeks, and we often have sponsors who want projects to go longer than that. And so the one team will finish, and they prepare a set of deliverables that hands off to the next team that starts and continues on. I told you the Learning Factory's been running for 30 years. We have one project that's been running continuously for like 23 years.
How does the new group accept building on the previous one? Because typically it's always projected, or at least from my experiences, either here or some other places.
We have, yes, we'll get students that are resistant to it, but there's always opportunities to develop stuff further. I had a student in my office on like the second week of class. I used to, have you guys always heard, you work on any project till you run out of time and money? So you run out of time or money. And in engineering, like no project, like we figured we went to the moon 40 years ago, right? 50 years ago. Went to the moon 50 years ago. So that's done. We don't need to do that again. We don't need to know anything else. That's of course not true, right? We're figuring out better ways to do it and all kinds of things, right? We made a computer and we're done. No, of course not. We're going to continue doing more and better. So as engineers, we keep working on stuff till we run out of time or money. I had a student in my office. I had to add one more thing right here. Because he got on his project and he came to me in the second week of class and he was like, this problem's already solved. I'm done. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It was actually an awesome project. It was a really cool project. And he was just like, it's all done. I can't believe you gave me such a stupid project. So that's the other thing you run out. Yeah.
I mean, sort of in response to that, when in real life, we don't work in a vacuum. You jump into
Sure.
and they're already working on something and you join in.
I absolutely agree. I'm speaking
Yeah.
about the resistance of the students.
Yeah, but we tell them this is what you're going to
Even when you
face in
tell
real
them,
life.
need some
Right?
I'm sorry to interrupt. We cannot hear you.
Unmute.
Is that
All right.
Is that
Better?
better, Kennedy? Better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, the stuff we said before was kind of secret, so. All right. Let's talk. So what is project-based learning? We've used the phrase learning by doing. I think that's a great way of putting it. It's unstructured. What are some adjectives, some words that you would describe for key attributes of project-based learning?
Messy.
Messy, I love it. Okay, and number 10, messy.
Practical.
Okay, I know it. You didn't know, so I'm going to tell you. This is as close as I had to the Egypt kit.
I should have gotten you one.
All right, so it's messy. What else? Practical. Okay, good. Other words you use to describe project-based
We got someone in the chat, creative.
creative. Yes.
Collaborative.
Okay. Often, we hope it is.
We need
We
to
run.
collaborate with the sponsor, even if the students aren't collaborating.
Sure. I'm going to show you one example that students kind of do on their own, but even then, they're working with TAs and shop staff and other kinds of things, right? So yeah, for sure.
We've got engaging from the chat from Caroline and Rasha, full of human interaction, and human is all in all caps.
And nice. Love it. I will tell you, I worked with a faculty member from Arts and Architecture, and the two of us designed a project-based learning course together. And we spent years planning this course. And we went in on the first day to teach it, and I had prepared content to share with the students. And he's like, whoa, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I've got these slides, I've got this lecture, I've got all these materials, I want to teach them stuff. And he's like, whoa, this is studio. You don't mess with studio. This is a safe space. This is sacred. This is where students get to explore and create without the interference from faculty. We're just here to mentor and answer questions and other things. So there's a lot of different perspectives on the same kind of experience, right? In engineering, we're like, yeah, we're going to let you like screw around, but we also don't want the bridge to fall, so we're going to tell you how to do some math, right? And so we intervene maybe a little bit more than they might in other disciplines. But
We've gone here in the chat, done with spirit and quick. So the spirit piece,
nice.
energy.
Okay, love it. Yeah, dynamic. Great, thank you.
I don't know where the quick came from. It can be quick, but doesn't have to be quick. Yeah.
So it could be quick, like alive.
Because it's spirit and quick, so I guess that's
Spirit and,
the
yeah.
energetic piece, I guess, is coming through. Maybe you could clarify.
I see it as complex,
Okay.
extended period of time. That's the projects. I like.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to put a phrase up here, open-ended.
Okay.
And we'll talk about this in a minute, but I think that's one of the challenges as faculty that many of us bump against is there's not one right answer, right? And which makes evaluation and assessment really challenging.
There's
So
one word I learned from Maha a couple years ago, which is that not yetness, like having this not yetness, like always thinking that not there yet. Do a little more, not here, not yetness.
yeah, so we're going to keep working on this until we run out of time or money or creativity. Nice. Okay. So I would agree with all of those things. I want to establish at the beginning that just because you give someone a project, a hands-on project, that doesn't mean that it's a good one. And that's actually one of the hard things about this is identifying a good project. And like I said, I've seen a couple thousand of these at this point, and so I know they're about this big, not physically, but kind of what your students are taking on. It's not too big, it's well-defined. I have a pretty good sense of it. But if you just randomly grab something, or even worse, let students randomly grab something, often the projects end up being really bad. So this is, I mentioned we do a course in Singapore, and we work with the students and we ask them, they're on teams of people from the US and people from Singapore and people from China. And they go out and we ask them to solve a problem that's relevant to the people in Singapore. And it's a great way for them to get to know the culture and the people and to experience the country and all these different kinds of things. When we have them identify the project, it is almost always a cleaning project. So Singapore is very clean, and by nature, the Singaporeans are very messy. And so that means that all the time, if you're just out there looking for a project, you see, they call them the aunties and uncles, are out there cleaning. And you largely eat outside in hawker stalls. And if you've seen Crazy Rich Asians, they depict that at the beginning of the show. When they first land, they go to a hawker stall to eat. You can get a Michelin star meal for like $4. It's an amazing place. But they end up doing all these cleaning projects. You know what? You know what the people in Singapore are really good at? Cleaning. They spent a long time evolving their practice and have a pretty great way of doing it. And some students who've never cleaned anything in their lives coming in and trying to solve that problem, the answers are almost always terrible. And so I'm saying it's not usually the fault of the students because they don't know any better. We told them to go identify a problem and they went out and they looked around and they're like, what? All these people clean. Let's see if we can make their lives better, right? So we can't fault them. You know who's at fault? It's the faculty who didn't give them better instructions or who let that through. So now we have a rule, there's no cleaning. Right? The very coolest project we had come out of Singapore, in my opinion, it has the attributes of why it's a good project. It was very specific. The people that were involved with it, it was relevant to them. They had their own personal experience with it. So in Singapore, you're required to do 2 years of mandatory public service. Most of them do that in the military, but it could also be working as a paramedic or working as a police person or a fire person or whatever, right? So the Singaporean students, by the time they get to the course that I teach, have all done that service. And we had a kid who'd been a fireman. Spent 2 years, was a probie, so he went through all the training, and then did all his time as a fireman. When they go out and they practice putting out fires, they've got these great big hoses that they fill with water and do stuff. When it's all done, they've got to get all the water out of the hose and then roll it up. And the hoses are really, really heavy when they're dry. And when you make them wet, they're really, really, really heavy. And they needed a way to roll the hoses quickly. And these guys, for their project, designed a thing that does what they call the Dutch roll, but it was made out of PVC and steel that they'd welded up, and you could take the hose, you put this in the middle of it, you plop it on there, and you crank this little thing, and it spins it up and squeezes the water out, and when it's all done, you've got this dry hose in a beautiful roll that you can take off. But it was one of the most amazing projects I've ever seen. They use it in Singapore right now. And why was it a great project? Because the people that identified the need had some experience with it. It wasn't just some random something that got chosen. So not all projects are good. I wanted to spend a little bit of time going through and talking about the project-based learning ecosystem, because I think there are a lot of things that go into an effective project-based learning ecosystem. So I have up here students and faculty. Sure, of course, we know those things. What else do we need in a good ecosystem for project-based learning? What's going to help it to be successful?
Sources.
Resources. What kind of resources?
Money.
Money. All right.
Universal language.
Yeah. Okay, so we need resources. I'll put money in here.
I think someone from the sponsor or wherever the problem space.
Okay.
Connect them with the community that's gonna benefit.
All right, good. So we need, let's call that an engaged client. Okay, it's not enough just to have a client. We want a client that's involved, right? Awesome. Yeah. Other words.
Mental readiness.
I'm sorry? Mental readiness? Okay, tell me more about that.
Because so I'm speaking from my perspective, before somebody moves into a project, the person must be mentally ready to undergo whatever the project brings on board.
Okay, yeah.
If it's put on somebody who is not mentally ready or does not connect to it in any way, there will not be any creativity, the person will feel burnt, there will not be any passion to even consistently go through iteration. There's a total disconnect.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So we have students, but it's not just students, it's students that are mentally ready to work on the project. I saw one come up.
Clear learning outcome.
Yeah, so we want good outcomes.
Milestones? Or timelines? Both. Milestones and timelines?
Okay, yeah. This is so milestones, this is the NASA we're going to the moon version thing, right? So the stage and gate process all came out of trying to organize these big projects and help people to be, these projects to be successful. Yeah.
Accessibility to possible users of the problem, the thing that they're designing for.
Yeah, we need access to our users. It's no good if we're doing, this is another one we had in Singapore. We're doing a project for people that are blind. Great. Do you know any? No. All right. Well, right. Like you need access to the users. Otherwise, it's kind of silly. Yeah.
On the chat also, there is peer feedback, individual reflection, evaluation strategy, clear rubric for evaluation.
Nice. All right. So rubrics. We need peers, reflection, engagement, all that kind of stuff. Good. Okay, other things that we need in the ecosystem to help us to be successful with project-based learning. We've got users, we've got faculty, we've got ways to evaluate them, we've got resources. Okay.
I would like to add one thing to the mental readiness part, which would help more of a participatory opportunity for the students to be in the ecosystem what they're designing, to be able to observe, to do participatory engagement. So this is something that I would add to this is something that would help us with the mental readiness.
Okay, so mental readiness connected with users, being able to engage with the users, but also they need to be able to kind of do stuff on their own, right? Be engaged with it and have space to engage with things. Good.
There's someone in the chat that has some experience in the field.
Yeah, so this is my beef with IDEO. We'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
But yeah, the explosion of experts, right? So you can't, we want some expertise. We need, well, there's some value in having a naive solution to something. Often naive solutions can end up being naive, right? So having some expertise in the area can really be beneficial. Good, yeah.
What I'm saying actually depends from one case to the other. Well, planning ahead, because some cases, especially if it is a project is having activities with other partners off campus. Maybe it's something community based.
Okay, so we need to do planning and coordination.
You need to have maybe 3 months, something like that. We need to have everything really well planned, well scheduled.
Okay, nice. And that will allow a faculty member, like I showed earlier, if you don't have a plan, then the faculty member's got to be intervening all the time between the sponsor and the students, the client and the students. We want that faculty member out of that loop, and having stuff coordinated and planned in advance will allow that to happen.
There are a couple of people in the chat.
Okay.
So we have making, facilitating a safe space for making mistakes and getting creative.
Love it.
So a safe space piece, psychological safety, and also we've got proper scaffolding. Shut up. And there's one thing maybe I want to add that I've noticed is a way for students to learn how to work together, not to assume they know how to work.
Okay. So we'll teach some collaboration in some way.
I think we have someone here.
So an appropriate handover process of reflection after the project.
Okay, so a nice wrap up to it, right? So we need to be able to do an effective set of things.
With proper documentation.
Yeah, good. All right, this is awesome. So here are the things that I thought of. And so I have students and faculty and sponsors. I'm in engineering, so I feel like a maker space is really important. A place to enable prototyping and work through that kind of stuff. Coaches, I'm distinguishing between our coaches and faculty, right? So we will often have an instructor that is providing training on specific skills, and then we have a coach that's there just kind of facilitating the process and helping people move through stuff. And it doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes does. A culture. And culture is going to affect things like the site safety and the engagement and assessment. So those things, it affects the mental outcome or the mental readiness, one of those. And then the resources we've talked about. You guys have a way better list than I had. This is a picture of the maker space that we use. So that building that I showed you earlier has a number of different kinds of spaces in it. This space right here is a 24-hour access maker space. So students can access this all day, all night, all year long. It has a number of resources in it that they can access for low fidelity prototyping. So they can't cut their finger off in here. There's none of that kind of stuff. But there are like 12 3D printers in there, and tons of tools, and lots of glue sticks and cardboard, and the kinds of things that you would use to make lower fidelity prototypes. Good. All right, my next question. Where do good projects come from? And somebody asked this earlier on, what happens if you can't engage industry? So obviously, good projects can come from industry. What other ideas do you have for where we can get good projects? I told you they're bad projects, so now everybody might be shy. But where can we get good projects? Yeah.
For example, we can talk with students to reflect on their daily life, like where are some gaps, and what are the things or certain routines that they do that they wish that they had a better solution or better way to do it. So it can be something from their personal daily experience, something that they can easily reflect on a daily basis and work on, and they can also be the user which they can test with and so on.
Yeah, that's great. So we don't allow the students to also be the client. We want them to learn those skills because those are distinct skills. But certainly, yeah, talking to the students and learning about what their life experience is is an incredible way to come up with ideas.
Mention the community from the community.
Yeah, so the community is a great place. There's people out there that have needs. We had, I can't even tell you. So we've got to run 240, 250 projects a year, right? So Lockheed Martin is a company. They're an aerospace company. They make all kinds of various things from helicopters and airplanes to stuff that goes to satellites, missiles, all kinds of stuff, right? Lockheed Martin, they've sponsored a project every year for 30 years. And so they're a fantastic partner. Internally, they've got someone who is designated to identify a project for our capstone program. And that individual works for several months. He identifies resources, financial resources to pay for the project. He identifies somebody at the company that has time to meet with the students each week. He identifies a really cool idea that they can work on, and every whole bunch of work goes into that. He submits that project, and I'm super excited to get it, and it's a blessing, and I love it. I still need 249 more, right? Like the magnitude of projects that we need is crazy. We found my guy who looks for projects met someone that is in charge for our area of the United States of helping the state and national parks to be accessible to people with disabilities. That's 1,000 projects, right? Like, so that we will get more projects out of that one relationship than we'll have in 30 years of working with Lockheed Martin for a lot of different reasons. But that's an amazing context. So it's in the community, and it's an opportunity for us to do a lot of really neat things. So that's a great suggestion.
Something in the chat?
Yeah. So Caroline is mentioning also that one course's outcome can be the seed for another. For example, students working on a needs analysis as a project could come up with ideas for other courses to start their projects in that course.
I love it. Yeah, and you can take, in fact, you can bake that into your curriculum. We do that a little bit with our first year students. So our first year students work on a project. We have 1,500 first year students working on one project in teams of 4 for a single company. And that company will often take the outcomes from those. They'll look at all the work that all those student teams did. Earlier I was talking about this, I said monkeys on typewriters. Got that in Egypt, right? So the students don't know anything, the first year students. So we had a wide range of outcomes. But we'll take that outcome and the company will bring it to the 4th year students and have them work on that project. So that's a great suggestion. Yeah.
Identifying a problem.
Okay.
It's one, and sometimes the interdependence between curiosity, between frustration, and the necessity of something being done.
Okay. Yeah, research is fantastic. I mentioned about 30 or 70% of our projects come from some version of industry, whether it's a startup company. The other 30% come from research and our hospital. Our hospital has needs all the time for, hey, can you help us figure out how to do this? So, good. So I have down here, industry engagement can be a challenge. Companies participate for a lot of reasons. Sometimes they have a very specific need, and that's what we imagine, right? A company comes to us and they're like, hey, we need you to solve this problem. But often they come to us for other reasons. One of the big ones lately is they want to recruit the best students. And so they'd like to work on a project with some students and get to know the students a little bit and then make job offers to a couple of them. And so it's like an internship kind of thing. Some of them participate just to be around the university and put their name on things, get their name in front of students. A really interesting one, we have companies that participate because they want their young engineers to have a project management experience. And so they make their young engineer a client, and then they learn how to manage a team, and they practice on university students before doing it for real at the university. So what we promise, nothing. And that's really important for project-based learning because you don't want to be tied to the outcome. If you're committed to the outcome has to work, it has to be perfect, then you end up behaving in ways as an instructor or as a university or whatever that aren't conducive to the students' learning. And so when we do ask for a fee from the companies, but it's a donation. And we make it clear that it's a donation, that it's not a work for hire, and everything else. So more than 95% of the sponsors are either satisfied or very satisfied. So it usually goes well, but we're running 250 projects a year. And so if 5% of them aren't satisfied, then that still means that we've got, 12 or 15 sponsors that are unhappy with how things went. And that's just the cost of doing business. That's, I think, even in industry, that, right? Not everything goes the way you hope. One of the big issues that we have with them is the scope. Especially the entrepreneurs want way more than students can do in a semester. We have issues around intellectual property and confidentiality, and so we've got to navigate those. We have a form that we use for both of those things. We only use our form. Companies all want us to use their form. We don't use those. So that's an issue. And those are some of the big kind of pitfalls that we run into with the sponsors, is kind of managing their expectations. Scope. Yeah.
But we promise nothing is accepted by large scale companies, or no, I mean, how about the middle class ones?
No, the large scale companies, they get it. They understand that it doesn't always work. The issues that we have, my 10 to 12, are almost always entrepreneurs. Because it's their own money often that's sponsoring the project. We charge $3,000 for we charge $4,000 for a project. The student team gets $1,250 budget to work from. But that's meaning we back at Penn State. That's how it's done. But the big companies, they get it. They know that it's not always going to work, and it's not their money. The entrepreneurs, it's literally their money, and they always wanted more, not always, but often wanted more than the students are able to deliver. We try it, so managing those expectations is always a challenge for us. Yeah.
One thing we noticed with the academic industry partnerships we have actually implemented at the university is that the driver for industry was what they called an extended interview. So they wanted access to the students to be able to observe them and to see them working and see what they could produce. And they said the cost of that was lower than the cost of recruitment and having to hire students who they didn't know much about and having to do extended testing and rounds of interviews. They found that they could point to a student and say, we want to hire this student. And that happened multiple times with the challenges we did with the construction engineering, and happened before.
Yeah,
that was the driver for them. They wanted access to our students, basically.
So I just want to emphasize, and we've listed these already, some alternatives to industry sponsorship, right? Community, other students, these kinds of things. Authenticity doesn't necessarily mean it has to be from industry. This is a project right here that came out of an idea that students had around bicycle seats. And they did a bunch of 3D printing. They learned a lot of really cool things. That was a really great project. Some of our best projects don't actually involve industry at all, and actually aren't even part of a class. So we hold what we call build nights. Build nights are an opportunity for students to come and get engaged with the Learning Factory, to learn new skills, to build some community, to have some fun. So in the last academic year, we held 65 of these build nights. And we had 1,300 people attend these. These are extracurricular activities. They don't have anything to do with a class. They're just there to have fun. 25% of these were sponsored by industry. The other 75% were just ideas that we came up with. And the projects range from all kinds of stuff. I'm going to show you a couple in just a minute, but snow globes, make a lot of snow globes. Students love making their own snow globes. Do you know snow globes? Okay. It just occurred to me that might not be a big thing in Egypt. Charcuterie boards, they love making those in the wood shop. Radiation detectors. I'll show you the food dehydrator one in a minute. 20% of the people that attend these are outside of the College of Engineering. So we love that. It brings in, even though we're the ones staffing it and paying for it and everything else, we like bringing in this diversity of people, diversity of ideas and experiences. And it helps a lot of our engineers to feel more comfortable. What we found with the Learning Factory 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when it was just mechanical engineering and industrial engineering, is that if you weren't comfortable working on cars and welding, then people felt like they weren't welcome in the space. And so by having activities like we're making snow globes, that encourages people to come in and work in the space and get confident in the space. And then they learn how to do other things like welding and working on cars and other kinds of stuff. But they start with this thing that's a very interesting and engaging project for them.
How long is that? It's just one night?
It's just one night, and they only last one night, and they run anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. So we do it all very quickly.
I love it.
So here's the ads that we send out. So each week we have an email that goes out on Monday that's the subject is This Week in the Learning Factory. And these are the fun things that are happening. This is the hours that we have going on in the Learning Factory. And so this was 1 week in April in the Learning Factory. So one night they made their own food dehydrators. Those would work really well. Super dry, very hot. You stick that thing out, that'd be great. And this was done in collaboration with the College of Agricultural Sciences. And so that's really cool. And then we had this other project that was, we're doing origami. So come learn how to fold paper, and all the students came, everybody folded a few of these little things, and then they assembled it all together into this great big origami sculpture. So we do lots of different kinds of things. If your industry friends don't have projects, maybe they don't have a project, or they don't have enough money, or they don't have whatever resources you need, maybe there's something else that they can provide. And you'll see why I'll solve here in a second, but maybe we have companies that have a piece of equipment that they don't use anymore that they'd like to donate to us. That's great. Maybe they have a little bit of resources and they'd like to come and run a build night. And so we ask them to give us $1,000. We use that to buy a couple $100 worth of pizza and some materials. And then the company comes and they talk about their company for a little bit. Here's 15 minutes about our company, and then we build something that's relevant to that company. So Boeing came and we made balsa wood gliders. CNH came, their farm equipment came, and we built like these trusses that could support materials and whatever. In this case, I like football. And if you notice on like the Liverpool jersey, this doesn't actually say Liverpool. It has like bank names and Experian. It's got like different company names on it and everything, right? And they pay money to be there. I've got 65 Learning Factory TAs walking around in shirts that I made for them with no branding on it at all. So we started to sell space on our jerseys to the companies. And just like they do with the football kit. So our Learning Factory TAs all have these cool jerseys, and people give us money to get their name on the kit. And that's one of the ways that we fund all those. So 75% of those build nights don't have anything to do with industry. There's snow globes and charcuterie boards, whatever, right? We're funding those out of companies giving us money to get on our Learning Factory TA kit. All right, this came up earlier. We talked about psychological safety, right? That's one of our things, a safe space. So this is obviously a really critical component to things. What is a psychologically safe space to you guys? When I say that, what does that mean to you?
No judgment.
Okay, no judgment. Great, I need to rotate back. Great. Okay, what else?
Being able to veil while I think it relates also to judgment. So
Okay, it's a space where it's safe to fail. That's really, really important. Any other thoughts?
A space to be able to express concerns without fear of any form of judgment or bias or stereotype.
Yeah, so express concerns, and we don't want to have, you need to be able to do that without worrying about what's going to come back at you, right? Yeah.
As is also mentioning, you can make mistakes without serious repercussions.
Yeah, that's great. I saw one come through constructive feedback. Yeah.
It's kind of like the difference between being nice and kind. Like we can say nice things or that we can say things that are constructive or criticism and be kind about it.
Nice, great, thank you.
And being thankful, actually responding to them.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, so the National Science Foundation in the US funds research into a number of different areas. I'm a co-PI on a grant where we're studying psychological safety in project-based learning. And we've designed these interventions where students go and receive training in how to create, how to be psychologically safe teammates and all these kinds of things, right? And all of the students in our capstone project go through this program that we've designed at the start of the semester. We've now gathered data from first year and fourth year students, and it's like 800 students or something, so it's a pretty good sample. The training that we've created for them does almost nothing. The students that have received the training and those that have not received the training, it's indistinguishable. Their experiences on the team when we use the Edmondson Psych Safety metric, no effect at all. It turns out that psych safety isn't something you can have somebody go through, like watch a video about being a good teammate, right? It's something that they need to learn and breathe and have, most importantly, I think, have modeled for them. Back at the beginning, I talked about instructors being the #1 predictor of success on these projects. Some instructors create psychologically safe spaces, and some of them don't. And when you create a space that's nurturing and where it's safe to fail, and they see you as an instructor, I've got this right here. When they see you as an instructor modeling vulnerability, making mistakes yourself, and owning the mistakes in front of the class, having students make mistakes and accepting that and working through that. When they see that, they understand, oh, this is a class where that's how we behave. And the teams start to do that. And so the psych safety doesn't correlate at all with the training that we provided. Instead, it correlates with the instructor they have. And so the next phase for us is we need to train our instructors on how to create a psychologically safe class. And that's a big thing for us. Safety does not equal comfort. That's one. It's okay for people to be a little bit uncomfortable. We need to understand that and work with that. We need to prepare them for being out in industry where things aren't always going to be comfortable, and we need to help them understand how to respond to that. And you brought up earlier feedback. That's a big one. How do we provide feedback to students in an appropriate way? I mentioned my colleague in arts and architecture. The first time I went to an arts and art crit, who was it? We had some architecture people. Okay, all right.
I just talked about my sister-in-law.
That's okay. So the architects, when they give feedback, they're more aggressive than the engineers are. We're almost kinder. How are you? Architect. Oh yeah. So can you confirm for us that architects are very frank in the feedback they provide? So great. Other thoughts on psychological safety, things that we want to make sure we capture?
We've got welcoming diverse ideas and approaches, collegial atmosphere, ability to be open.
Yeah, love it. Welcoming, collegial, open, those are all awesome. Great.
Yeah, also Sharif is saying the main advantage is that students learn how teamwork can be to the benefit of all the members, including himself. And when they celebrate their success, it is far more beneficial than one-man show attitude, something we lack.
Yeah, that's great. One last fast story. I was just with my brother last week, my youngest brother. I had my kids very young. He had his kids much older. One of the advantages to having your kids when you're much older is you can be a lot smarter about how you raise your kids. My wife and I, we were just making it up, and we kind of hope for the best. But he's coaching, he has a son that's 7 years old. He's coaching their basketball team. And for their practice this past week and their pregame warm-up before the game against the #2 team in their league, what they practiced was learning everybody's name. and how to congratulate each other. So they learned high fives and low fives and fist bumps and arm crosses and all these different things. And so when they would go down, the coaches they're just little, so the coaches get to be on the field around the court during the game. So when their team would go down and they would score a basket or get a rebound or whatever, and they would be running back to get ready on defense, they have to wait for the other team to bring the ball up. You'd say, all right, who did that? Who made that basket? And they all had to shout his name. And then they would all do one of the cheers that they practiced, right? And I'm sitting there watching that. That's amazing. Those are the kinds of things that didn't occur to me when I was young, but that his whole team knows that that's a psychologically safe space to work in, that it's okay to make mistakes and that it's okay to be successful, that things will work out great, that everybody has their back. I love that.
And also, Karim is apologizing that he will be tweeted.
Okay, all right. I mentioned maker spaces. How do maker spaces fit into this ecosystem? Maker spaces support iteration, they support experimentation, they help people to build confidence. It's a place to do informal learning. And we've talked about things like the build nights. The build nights may not be directly related to any class project that somebody has, but it gets the students into the space and gets them comfortable with it and building confidence there. So when they do have a project, they feel okay going back to the learning factory and doing the work, right? They know that it's okay to be there even though they don't like cars and don't like to weld or whatever it might be. This right here is a student that I had as a first-year student. He was a TA in the learning factory for 4 years. And by the time he was ready to graduate, he had so many job offers. We have all these students who are trying to find jobs and having a tough time. The kids that have learned how to be confident in the makerspace, when they go and they sit down at an interview, their portfolio is huge because they've got all these projects that they've worked on. And the company can be confident that they're hiring somebody that knows how to do a lot of different kinds of things. So makerspaces can really empower students and help their portfolios to be more robust. This is another activity that we have for our students. I mentioned I was going to show you an individual build project or hands-on learning project. That's this. So this is the Cornerstone Maker Experience. So all of our first-year students, they sign up for one of, we've got about 10 projects at this point, and we provide them with a kit and a set of instructions that they can go through to build the thing. So we've got an ultrasonic rangefinder. We have a snow globe. They can make plaques, a double-sided maze. Every one of these requires at least 2 different pieces of equipment in the learning factory. So they have to get a couple of different kinds of training. Air tags, we have make your own air tag. So some of the students might do 3D printing and electronics. Others might do the laser cutter and the wood shop. So it allows them to combine stuff in a lot of different ways. And again, the idea is we're getting them in their very first year and helping them to be confident in the space. That's getting that kind of experience and confidence is something we really want.
What them with the ideas to build things beforehand, or they just build whatever they want?
No, we have a menu. We have to pick from the menu. So this is literally, you can go to this website, but these are literally the choices that they've got. There's like 10 choices. There's a bunch more choices on there. We're retiring some and adding some new ones right now. It's in flux. We'll have it ready for fall. But they pick one of these projects. I'm going to make we have 250 kits for the ultrasonic rangefinder. And once those are all signed up for, then somebody else, you've got to pick something else. And so they go in, and if you go to this website, if you click on this, there are all the instructions for how you put that together. And it works really well. So in this last academic year, so our building's been open for 3 years. So we've been running that Cornerstone Maker Experience for 3 years, which means the students who did it in their first year are now in their 3rd year. We had over 56,000 visits to the makerspace in the last academic year by more than 5,000 people, and they stayed an average of 84 minutes. You can see these are a number of visits, like in the metal shop, wood shop gets quite a bit, EIoT, our advanced manufacturing. We have 3D printers all through the building, but we have really fancy, if you want a 3D printed metal or carbon fiber, or with our multicolor printers and stuff. That's all down in there. That's special training. These 2 build spaces support classes in particular. Then the 4th floor, you can see that's a 24-hour access makerspace. So I added it up. It's like if you take 5,000 people times if you take 56,000 visits times 84 minutes, it ends up it's like 3 years of time that people spent in the Learning Factory last year. So all the minutes those days. So it's working really well. All right, how do we assess open-ended projects? This is a challenge for faculty. My number one suggestion, manage the process, not the outcomes, and try not to show off. Faculty are the worst in a variety of ways. Have you guys seen Free Solo, the movie?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Alex Honnold. He's standing on the face. There's like a 2,000-foot cliff below him. He doesn't need to do this. He's only like, he doesn't need to stand here for this picture. He's climbing without ropes and without a harness. He climbed the whole thing. So it makes me anxious just looking at it. So he's climbing along, and there are lots of ways he could have done the rest. But what he decided to do was go to this place and just chill there and show off just a little bit, right? For faculty, we love to show off, and the way we show off that's most harmful is by solving the problem for the students. Right, so we need to stay out of it and allow them to go through that process. And so when we're working with the students, we need to work with them on the process that they're going through and not the specific outcome that's associated with it. So when we assign grades, like 80% of it is on the process and teamwork and professionalism, stuff like that. The last 20% is the sponsor happy, does it work, that kind of thing. So it's not bad, not efficient. Yeah. So the process, things like the decision-making they use, did they document it? Did they do appropriate reflection? How was their teamwork, the communication? And we've had all those things up further, so that's good. We assess it through rubrics, peer assessment we talked about, sponsor feedback, all of those kinds.
I love the reward with engineering, not like engineering.
Yeah. All right, and here's our last thing. How do we make this sustainable? How do we make it so that it can continue on? So these succeed because we've got faculty that are involved and interested and engaged. We were talking about that earlier. How do we motivate faculty? We know this is good for our students. How do we motivate our faculty to do it? And that's always going to be a big challenge. Having the right staff to support it, having sponsors or clients that are interested and engaged. Having maker spaces or some kind of space where they can do prototype and iterate and go through the process. Having a culture that's psychologically safe and where this kind of stuff is cool and interesting can make a huge difference. And then obviously institutional support helps with getting the resources and everything else we need to make that happen. So in short, we need good problems. We need the students to own the thing that's happening. It needs to be psychologically safe. We need to learn through the making, go through that iterative process. We need good ways to assess. We need a sustainable place. And by the way, it's just a lot of fun. As I was going through and putting together pictures for these slides, I was like, that kid's great. That kid. So, she really likes Ferrari, God bless her, the F1 team, and that's never going to work out. This kid hiding back here, smartest kid I ever had in the class. He just graduated. He's going to go work at SpaceX. Also very, very kind. Everybody always wanted to be on his team, and not because he was so smart, but because he was so good to the people around him. I just look at these and I'm like, so when you work on these kinds of things, it gives you an opportunity to get to know the students in ways that you never would have done, right? When you're just up, lecturing and handing out your regular exams and everything else. When you're working with the students, you build a relationship. It's a lot of fun. There you go. Thank you. We took a lot of time at the beginning getting everything going, but it's 3:30 now. I know some people have to go, but if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody online. This computer just to check and make sure. I also have.
Everyone is saying thank you online.
Everyone's saying thank you online and thank you.
Thank you for all your participation. Great.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Well, like, it was an on-demand manufacturing factory, by the way. Yeah, so, yeah.
You can work on the
Yeah.
Yeah, just. There's Parkinson. Oh, that might even be.
Is that
And the one that looks cooler, none of those. True, Matt Parkinson.
Let's start that, sorry. So you can stop the recording.
Yeah, that's me. Oh, God. All right.